Well, now we get to our headliner, and that is Sean McEnerney, who has been kind enough to join our meeting tonight. Sean is the campaign manager for the Biden-Harris campaign in Arizona. And this is a guy who really knows what he's doing. He ran the Arizona Democratic Party's coordinated campaign in 2022. And you might remember that's when we reelected Mark Kelly, we elected Governor Hobbs, Secretary of State Fontes, and Attorney General Chris Mays. So he knows what he's doing. And he's worked on campaigns across the country in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Iowa, and now Arizona. So with that, Sean, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Larry, for that introduction. Thank you all so much for having me. It is a real honor to be here. Also, it is really incredible to see how many folks are on this meeting, just looking to support Democrats up and down the ballot. As Larry mentioned, my name is Sean McEnerney. I'm the state campaign manager here with the Biden-Harris team in Arizona Democrats, and just really excited about the team that we are building up. A little bit about myself, as Larry was saying, I'm originally from Queens, New York. I've traveled a little bit all over the country over the last 12 years, working on campaigns. New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Iowa, 4 different times. Most recently on Kamala Harris's caucus campaign. But I've had the incredible honor to be working here in Arizona over the last 4 years, first as organizing director in 2020 with Mission for Arizona, and then running the coordinated campaign in 2022. And so I'm very, very excited, I would say to be back, but I have not left Arizona since I, moved here 4 years ago. I'm very excited to be building back up, this campaign here because there is just an incredible amount, on the line. I think before getting into kind of what we're doing on the ground, what we're going to do on the ground, I want to talk about the kind of the stakes of the campaign, both kind of at the presidential level, and then I think with Democrats up and down the ballot as well. I think we went in in 2020 and in 2022 and have heard the kind of this is the most important campaign sort of talk, but I think we all know that this is an incredibly important moment in our country's history, an important moment, for a time to make a clear choice between what our country wants to be, what our country values, and we know that there's a lot on the line in this election. I think specifically, in Arizona over the last, I would say couple of weeks, but I think everyone on this call knows for much longer than that. The right to an abortion, the right to reproductive health care, has been on the line, in this fight for folks. And I think we just have seen that really solidified in the last couple of weeks with the Arizona Supreme Court's, terrible decision, ruling for the 1864 Civil War era ban. And we know that's going to be an incredibly important, motivating factor, to folks voting for Democrats up and down the ballot. What I will say, additionally to that is we are also, making sure that we are out there talking to folks, talking about all the great work that Democrats are doing on a whole bunch of different topics. I think looking back over the last 4 years and kind of comparing that, to Trump's 4 years in office, there's a really, really big difference. And I think for Arizona specifically, the administration has delivered a lot, in terms of good jobs, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of being really solutions focused. And I think that is something that is an incredible kind of contrast, that we see with Republicans, and makes a really, really huge difference. Is Democrats are about finding solutions, about making people's lives better, about solving real problems, and that could not be further from the truth, for Republicans. And then kind of on down the line, I think there's the issues that unite us, the issues that we're fighting on, around climate change, around rising costs and helping people out. I think we saw, I don't know if folks saw the video, but there was a Trump video from Mar-a-Lago talking to a bunch of his rich friends about wanting to just cut taxes for his rich friends again. And that's a belief system, I guess that they have, but we, I think really clearly, are, care that, for kind of the working person, care for, making this country a better place. And I think also care about the future that we're going to leave behind, to the generations after us, both for what it means to be an American, for what it means to be, somebody that's, casting their ballot in this country, and also for building a better Earth and a better world. Reminded especially of that, with Earth Day yesterday. Just how important it is to be supporting, both President Biden, but Democrats, up and down the ballot as well. So that gets me a little bit into kind of like that's the why we fight. Know that the choice could not be more clear. It was incredibly stark in 2020, and now we've had 4 years of the Biden administration to be able to show just how incredibly different that experience is. So now I want to get into a little bit of like what we've been doing so far and like what we're going to do in the future as we continue this fight. We've been working really diligently and really quickly to build up our campaign, in Arizona, build up the physical presence of the campaign across the state and in communities across the state, and build up kind of the staffing infrastructure that we have. And this is something that I've seen over the last couple of cycles here is incredibly, incredibly important. Arizona is a state that is won on the margins, and in races down ballot is also a state where we win by really, really close races as well. And so it's incredibly, incredibly important that we put in the work and make sure that we are reaching out to folks all across the state, not just in any one or two places. So far, we've been focused on bringing on staff across our departments, but including organizing staff who work with our volunteers and volunteer leaders, folks like y'all, to make sure that we are reaching out to our friends, our neighbors, people throughout communities in Arizona. So that is one of our biggest priorities, and something where we are kind of expanding our reach across the state. Additionally, we've been opening offices across the state, physical locations in folks' community, where people can come out, learn how to get involved in the campaign, and just have a place where we can meet kind of like-minded Democrats and take action from there. So on both of those fronts, we're really close, to making some important steps forward. We're going to have a regional organizing director, so our organizing lead in Pima County, starting in May, which we're very, very excited about. And we're also going to be opening up a Tucson field office very soon. So definitely, look for more details there. I will keep folks updated. But both of those things are going to be happening in May, and we're very excited that things are moving forward there. And from there, we're going to be building out our campaign, bringing on additional staff, and then I think really making sure that we are kind of mobilizing the supporters that we know are out there, the volunteers that took action, in 22 and 20 and in years beforehand to take Arizona, from what folks considered as a very red state to kind of the premier battleground state in the country. And I think all of this, stands in like really, really stark contrast from what the Republicans are doing in state, and from what Donald Trump's campaign is doing in state. They, are not really taking a lot of action yet. They don't have that kind of infrastructure, on the ground, and it's really important that we take advantage of that huge contrast, that we are seeing. Because Republicans are not going to kind of sit back forever. They have not given up on Arizona, and we need to make sure that we're being really, really proactive. So what we're going to do, as we continue to go forward, is like we are going to continue to fight and be really proactive about building up across the state, hiring staff, opening offices, and creating a lot of different avenues for folks to get involved. I'm sure there's a lot of people on this meeting who've gotten involved in the past, whether it's attending meetings with family and friends, whether it's knocking on doors, making phone calls, all different sorts of activities. And we want to make sure, as we head into May and head later into this cycle, that we're providing a lot of opportunities for folks to take action and a lot of different ways for people to take action. It's going to truly take a huge number of people getting involved across the state to win by the really, really narrow margins that we win by. So I'm going to drop into the chat, and I know there's some questions in the chat as well, and would love to get to those too. I'm going to drop in the chat a link to our Mobilize, where we are posting our events. Right now, kind of in anticipation of bringing on that regional organizing director and opening that office in Tucson, we don't have yet in-person events in Tucson, but those will be coming very, very soon, coming very soon in Pima County in general, and all across the state. Right now, there are also virtual events for folks that like are looking to get involved right now, but um, I would keep this mobilize link sort of pinned. We're going to be adding a lot more information, having a lot more events that are going to be coming up really, really soon. And the last thing that I want to say, and then definitely want to take some questions for folks that are specific there. Is that we know this is going to be incredibly close. We know it's going to be incredibly close, at the presidential level. And I think we've seen, in 2020 and 2022, even looking back before then, just how close it's going to be, down ballot. I know I'm preaching to the choir, and everybody on this, in this meeting, on this call, knows just how stark of a difference it is, and how clear, that Democrats are the better choice, for Arizonans. But we also know that Republicans are going to go out there and, no matter what, get 45, 46% across the state, and that we need to do everything that we can to win by those narrow margins. So thank you all, like, in advance on, getting involved, talking to friends and family, canvassing, which I see in the chat there. This is all really, really incredibly important work. We won by just 10,000 votes at the top of the ticket in 2020. We delivered Arizona by just 10,000 votes. And now that's a recount margin, right? That's incredibly, incredibly close. We saw how close, races like Attorney General Chris Mays's race was last cycle, being decided by, just under 300 votes. And we saw what a tremendous difference those 300 votes make. Especially after Arizona Supreme Court's ruling, we see like how much kind of the actions of a few different voters, but also thousands of volunteers, like how much of a difference that makes. I think, like, when I think about that, I think about the thousands of ballots that we cured, after Election Day. I think about the hundreds of thousands of doors, that Democrats knocked across the state. Think of the like millions of texts and millions of phone calls that were made, just to deliver the state by 280 votes. This work is incredibly, incredibly important, and it is like the time that we have, over the next few months is incredibly valuable. So really, appreciate everyone's help and support, and really appreciate folks, getting involved this cycle. And then before I move to questions, I know Larry was mentioning the signs, so very excited for folks getting signs out. And Larry, if we need more signs, if we run through signs, definitely let me know, and we can get some more down to Pima County as well. But I will take some questions, and so happy to just look in the chat, or if there are questions that folks want to raise up. Yep.
Biden's good news economic message is not getting through because rent, groceries, and gas are more expensive. What can the campaign do to turn this around?
Yeah, no, I think that is a really great question. I think like something that's really important that we do is not just kind of share and shout the accomplishments that the administration has had on a very global level, but I think to talk in like really specific and like personal detail about what the administration has done, how that has helped people, like whether that's people specifically in Arizona, whether that's projects that people have specifically seen. I think also people sharing their personal stories. So actually, if there's anyone, on this call, and definitely reach out to me, or if there's somebody that that has a personal story of how they are, affected positively by like the work of the administration. I know there are like a lot of different examples across the state. That is super, super helpful, and something that we want to raise up as a campaign. So if we know someone who has had their student loans forgiven, who's gotten a high paying job because of CHIPS investment from the CHIPS Act, like there's a lot of different things that the administration has done, and like we have found that to be incredibly, incredibly important. I think a lot of times, especially for the average voter, like people are wary about the kind of like information and things they see online, especially nowadays. And like sharing those kind of personal stories, I think really makes a difference and really cuts through, and just demonstrates the impact that the administration has had on individuals.
Okay, the next question is, when will groundwork of the coordinated campaign start in Tucson, Pima County?
Yep. So we're looking to get that started as soon as possible. We will have an office that is open in Tucson in May. I think we haven't locked down the exact timing of the office date. We have the office location, just need to kind of get it all set up and ready to be open to the public. And then we'll have a regional organizing director who will be based full time in Tucson, who also is starting in May. So really at that point, we'll be able to hold, very regular events and meetings and canvases and what have you. So that's we're looking at that as the timeline. And then from there, we'll be growing even more to, different additional office locations, additional staff, that'll provide even more opportunities for folks to get involved.
May's about a week away, so will the information be passing through the Pima County Democratic Party, or how?
Yes, we'll definitely keep the Pima County Democrats updated. Also, I think Larry and I chatted a little bit about just like being able to kind of distribute, when we have an office opening set up, when we have, staff, starting. So I can keep both the Pima County Democrats and also the legislative district Democrats up to date, and we can get that information out there.
Okay, thank you. Next question. You said that we won in Arizona in the margins. What commitment will you make to meaningful voter registration to make the margins bigger, especially with abortion, healthcare firing up so many unregistered voters?
Yeah, I think that is incredibly important and something that we think about in terms of like all the groups and organizations that are taking action in Arizona. I think our campaign is incredibly important. The work that Arizona Democrats do is incredibly important. We also know that we have a lot of good kind of progressive partners organizations out there taking a lot of action. I think so. We look across the state on the voter registration front specifically on like how we can be kind of targeted and make sure that we're registering Democrats in some of our like really key constituencies. So some of the ones that jump out to me are among young voters, both on and off campus, to make sure that we are reaching out to folks and getting people registered. And that's both for new registrants, but also, especially for young voters that are just transient and move from place to place, pretty often. Making sure that folks are having their addresses up to date and they're able to cast their ballots, and really following that all the way through the process of making sure that like people have access to being able to early vote easily, that like we're getting kind of that voter education material out to those voters. And I also think about like native voters across the state, places where it's more challenging, to vote in person, making sure that we are following up around like voter registration. So a program that we ran last cycle, that we would be looking to build on is identifying, potential unregistered voters that were likely Democrats, and then mailing them, voter registration forms talking about the importance of registering as a Democrat, and then following up with those folks over the phone and in person and through text. And we want to like kind of layer those parts of our program together, so that we're making sure to reach someone. I like to think about it as like, we are folks that are on a Zoom call talking about politics in April. We're not necessarily normal voters and normal people. But folks that are out there that have are leading really, really busy lives, we need to make sure that we're following up and being really intentional about it, so that that message is getting through.
Okay, next question. What are your specific plans for CD6 to succeed against Juan Ciscomani?
Well, I think CD6 is really, really incredibly important. Obviously we got close last cycle, but we, I think, have a really important opportunity, to elect Kristen Engel to take down Juan Ciscomani. And it is more important now than ever that we do that. I think like investing in terms of staffing, in terms of like, our physical presence in that district is super, super important. I think working, very, very closely with the Engel campaign as well, is something that is incredibly, incredibly important. And that we'll be working on a lot. Because like this is something I think in this sort of district, and also in Arizona writ large, it's going to be so close that we need to be just as efficient and as kind of coordinated as we possibly can be, to be successful. And this is the kind of district that's really emblematic of Arizona. It's a district that when you win really, really close. I don't think anyone thinks, for Arizona writ large, that we're going to run away and win by 10, 15 points. This is going to be really, really close. And it's places like, Arizona 6 that are going to make the difference. So like, that is going to be just incredibly important for us.
Okay, how do volunteers get involved with the coordinated campaign?
So we will, the Mobilize link is a great place to start. And then we're going to be adding offices where folks can be able to drop by. We will be adding staff that'll be reaching out. to our county parties, to our legislative district parties, that will also just be sharing online about how to get involved. And even to like the old fashioned calling people, trying to reach people in any way that we possibly can. The way that I think about it is just providing as many opportunities as we can to get people to involved, to let them know what's happening. I think we've especially seen that with the importance of abortion right now. I know some of our volunteers that have gotten started recently. There's a bunch of those folks that hadn't been involved in 2022, hadn't been involved before then. And it's important to kind of provide those opportunities and let people know how to get involved, because it's not a given, that people are going to know the best way to support the campaign.
In addition to Biden-Harris, will Gallego and Engel be included in the voter outreach plan by the coordinated campaign?
Yep, that's something that we're working on right now, and I'm in frequent communication with the congressional campaigns and Representative Gallego's Senate campaign. I think I really see this as like I want this campaign to look like kind of the coordination that we were able to do in 2022, where we were able to have the Senate race and the governor's race and the congressional races and AG and Secretary of State all working together and kind of distributing that lit and knocking on doors talking about those candidates. So that's something that we're working on right now, and that my goal is definitely kind of like looking to the coordinated in 2022 as an example of like where Democrats were able to come together and be successful as a slate, and I think also kind of on the opposite side of things, point to Republicans as a slate and really show how wildly out of touch they are. Thankfully for us, kind of having the ticket start with Trump and Lake on the other side does a little bit of our work for us, but we need to keep reinforcing that with voters.
Right. I think we're out of time for questions, but somebody did include a story, a good story that you might in the chat that you might want to use.
Excellent.
And I guess we're all looking for good cooperation, and we don't want to see each other crossing each other's at people's doorways. So we hope we can work together.
Definitely want to work together as closely as we can. Like I said, it's going to be really, really close, and we need to be as efficient as we possibly can be to be successful. So really appreciate you all having me on. Big thank you to Larry for reaching out, and looking forward to working together.
Sean, thank you so much for coming to speak to us today. It's really important to hear from leaders like you, and I feel confident that with all of the efforts that you have underway and all the enthusiasm I hear in the comments, that Biden's going to win. We're going to have to work for it. There's going to be canvassing and door knocking and fundraising, but I'm optimistic about November.
Me too. Thank you, Larry.
Well, thank you so much for coming.